I'm John Leland. I'm a reporter at the New York Times and author of the book Happiness is the Choice You Make, Lessons from a Year Among the Oldest Old, about what I learned from following 6 people over the age of 85 for a year. So, a lot like this intergenerational video project. And one thing they both have in common is they both ask a big question, which is, what can we learn about how to live better, whatever age we are, from people who have lived long enough to know something about life? It's the fundamental question that we just don't ask. But it's amazing what happens when we stop thinking about old age as a problem that we need to somehow fix and start thinking about it as a resource that we can tap. When I started, I'll admit, I thought the story I was going to do about aging was just going to be a story about loss. You lose your hearing, you lose your eyesight, you lose your mobility. Eventually, you even have to give up your car. Gah! But as I spent time with some of the older folks, I found that even if they had experienced some of the losses that I was expecting, none of them defined themselves by these losses. Only other people define them that way. Their doctors, maybe their kids, maybe me. But they all found techniques to live fully and richly, even when they couldn't do some of the things that they used to be able to do. And that was an incredible, incredible lesson for me, and one that we don't think about. But you're going to find that they will pass these lessons on to you. And the great thing is that all you have to do is listen and say thank you and listen some more. And with that, I say thank you.
My name's Elena Springer. I'm a senior at Ellsworth High School, and I'm super excited to be doing this interview with you.
Hi, my name is Valerie Ann Sulia. I live in Bucksport. I'm glad to do this for you, and I hope I might see you someday. You never know.
You never know, that's right. All right, so I guess I'll start. So as you may or may not know, we're doing this project to celebrate the fullness of life. And, who better to offer reflections on this topic than folks like you, who've had years of living life fully, and are able to give a rich perspective on this topic. So I have a few questions to ask you, and I'm super eager to hear your thoughts on them. If you need something repeated, just ask. So question 1, what's the most fun thing you have done in your life?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that because I keep talking about it and it's been years. I went up in a hot air balloon with my 89-year-old mother. And at that time, uh, and we went free tithering. We didn't in Auburn and Lewiston area. We were up there over half an hour. My brothers and sisters, all younger than I, wouldn't go. They were too scared. And I still remember going with my mother, and she didn't want to come down. She said, "No, I'm ready. I want to do some more." So that was I would say that I still talk about it. So that's the most fun thing I've ever done with my family.
And how old were you when you did that?
I was in the 60s.
Yeah. Fun.
It was very
Um, yeah. Yeah. Do you like heights and stuff like that? Do you like being in the air, would you say?
well. My favorite things used to be before. I'm 84 years old right now, but I used to cross country ski all the time in the neighborhood and around and ice skate. I ice skated till I was 76.
Hmm.
Go to aerobics 3 times a week. I walk and exercise for the rest of the days, 4 times a week. So I keep very active.
Good for you. Um, all right. Question 2. What would you say makes for a good life?
I would say that makes a good life is many things, but one of the things that I chose for an answer would be to stay healthy and keep healthy because I mean, many times people come up to me and say, "You aren't 84 years old." Yeah. One lady almost hit me in the face once because she said I'm lying. And so keep a healthy, keep healthy. And I am very fortunate to have a good marriage. I've been married 58 years.
Wow.
And that does help you. And then completing your education, meeting your goals. I think that was one of my important things that I set at a very young age, and that's my most important, one of the most important things is that. And then stay active in the community. I think that's very, very important.
Nice. And if you don't mind me asking, how far did you go with your education?
I am an RN and a school in Lewiston, what we used to call CMG RN program. Then I went to Boston College to get a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. After that, I was still single. And then I completed my last semester at Boston College and got married and had a baby 9 months later. But since then, I've done many things. I worked in home health care right here in Ellsworth, community health and counseling service for over 20 years. And then I retired from that and I volunteered at a daycare center. And then they hired me. So I worked there in Bucksport, a nonprofit daycare center for 14 years. And then I'm also active in the community as I was the local health officer for 12 years in Bucksport. And then I'm on the board at the health center and on the board I'm a member of the hospice program in Ellsworth. Yeah, I have been since it started in 40 years. Just a few things.
Yeah, just a few. That's wonderful. Good for you. All right. I feel you kind of already answered this one, but we'll ask it anyway. So question 3, from that and your experiences, what advice would you give a young person just starting out in life?
Yeah, I studied this question because I think it's and I think what you want to do is when you're young and saying, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up? You know, people say that to you all the time.
Right.
You know what you want to be. And I think I was very fortunate. I wanted to be a nurse at 8 years old. My aunt was a nurse and I wanted to be a nurse. So I think it's important for you to put much thought into thinking what you want to do in your own life. And then starting when you're young, as I just said, and then keep this in mind and then speak to others. I think that's what we don't do. We don't share that information that we're thinking about. And I think we need to hear and talk to other adults, your parents, your friends, your relatives, and friends, and share what you're setting those goals, and get some suggestions from them. Don't just say, well, I don't know, I'm too young. Just say, you know, if you get some ideas, look into it, follow through with it, and then because I changed my mind a few times, even though I wanted to be a nurse quite young. But I think that's very important to stay focused on that subject and talk to others and ask them. I used to go different places so that I could see what people were doing, and that helped.
What inventions or other social or technical developments have you seen come into being during your life?
Oh my goodness. Out of that, I said, will she believe that I tell her the first thing was a telephone? We didn't have a telephone until I was about 10 years old. And the television, computers, cell phones, laptops, and cars. We didn't even have a car when I was a kid. My grandparents lived across the street. And now we have electric cars. And, you know, so there's so many things that in my beginning of my young childhood to now, that some of the things I probably will never even get a chance to learn and do. But yeah, the world has changed, and electronic wise, it's very advanced. And being a nurse is not quite my specialty.
For sure. I'm just curious, which of those that you listed do you think was like the most surprising or like, yeah, what was the most surprising of those like inventions?
The most surprising of those inventions. I think I think television was at the time. We really did. My grandmother had one, and I used to want to go over there all the time so I could see the television. Yeah.
All right. Question 5. What would you say you are most grateful for?
Well, I would say the most grateful thing is my health. I have an excellent health, and I think that that's why I put down as number one. I don't have any medical problems. My doctor says if he had 10 patients like me, he would be so happy. I don't have heart problems. I don't take any medicines other than vitamins and minerals and eat well. So I think being healthy. My mother was 94 when she died. Her name was Yvonne Turcott. And my grandmother was 94 when she died, Josephine Boisvert. I'm French, 100% French. And so my mother was born in Canada and came to the United States down Van Buren and with my grandmother. But she was born up there and then they came down here. So I think my health, and then I think the other thing is I'm lucky because of my health. I think the most important thing is to be able to I do aerobics and do all those things that I said I did, and shovel snow in the winter and everything. So I guess the other thing is to also be a member of the community and being involved in the community. I think that's an important thing, being a member of the community. And we've lived here 57 years in Bucksport.
Wow. That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, that's really incredible. I'm going to move on to question 6. Do you have a special memory of a family member or another special person in your life that you hold dear?
Yeah, I know you're going to guess what I'm going to say, right? My mother.
Of course.
Yeah, my mother, and she was very important to me, and she's been dead now for 10 years. So, but I still think about her and talk to her, and we keep her picture and things like that. And she set a good example for me, and I think that I would say my mother would. And my husband is very good. He's not well, but he's a very good member and important in my life. The other thing I haven't mentioned is important in my life is music, and I'm a member of the Bangor Symphony attendance, and we have subscriptions to it, and we've been going since 1965. So I think music is very important, and we like classical music, and we have the radio on all day, every day, with the classical music. Yeah. And I played French horn in high school.
Is that the same? Is that what you still play in the orchestra, is French horn?
Yeah. Yeah, I played French horn in high school. And I was in the orchestra and the band. And I went to Coney High in Augusta, Maine. You've probably heard of Coney.
Of course.
Yeah, everybody's heard of Coney High.
I just think it's really amazing how it keeps coming into play how a lot of the stuff that you mentioned has to do a lot with other people and staying connected. And I think that's super important and really.
Yeah. Because when I was working at daycare, I worked after school program, and I could see a change. Kids would go from very friendly at 7, and then they got to 10, 11, 12, 13, and you'd say hi, and they'd put their head down and scowl at you. And I had grandchildren that did that. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope they get out of that spell. And they did. And this is what happens as the kids go through different phases in their lives, and they don't communicate. They don't want you to bother them. So we want them to feel that you care about them, you love them, and you want them to share their worries and their problems. And
definitely.
It definitely helps.
Yeah. were there things going on in the world when you were growing up that affected how you grew up?
Oh, well, that I had to reflect back quite a few years, didn't I? I put down World War II, and I'm sure you don't have any knowledge about that.
No.
But that affected me because my dad and was had to make a decision of going to the war, and because he was sick at the time, he didn't go. But he was in the National Guard. He was active in the service. So World War II, and then I said the polio epidemic, the poliomyelitis epidemic. I had cousins that became paralyzed, and he just lived across the street, and I saw what happened to him, and I was 10, and I was girlfriends, a little girl down the street, and she had polio. So the poliomyelitis was probably as bad in the world as the COVID, I would say, in a different way, but it did affect the whole country, and affected my family and my life. And I wrote down some other things like, the flu epidemic that affects everybody in the summer, in the fall, and in the winter, and it affected me. And I guess I didn't think of anything else that I could think of at the time. When I was in high school, there were some things that went on in the school. I went to a Catholic school, grammar school, so I had to go to high school in the public school. So that change affected, how things went and getting accepted by the other kids. And I wasn't good in sports, so that's why, as I said, I went into music. And I think being in an orchestra and in the band, that was probably that saved me from and helped me get through high school. Definitely did. Yeah, it gave me a motive to want to do well in my classroom. And one of my classmates is now known as the early inventor of the computer program. He's in California now, where he's just died, but he was sat next to me and helped me do my algebra.
Amazing. That's cool. But do you have any words of advice for the next generation regarding the things going on in the world right now?
Yeah, I think we should focus on positive issues. Definitely, everybody should, and not on the negative, and and then don't let politicians direct your life. That's my goal, even though I've been involved in politics. And we don't need any more negative politicians making the world a sadder place.
Yeah.
And then, it's like they say, be kind, be safe, stay well, be active. I think that's, I really think, look at the positive things, look at the things, enjoy what we have, and take opportunity for those. If you have a chance to do something you've never done before and you're interested in, follow up and do it. And, get somebody to do it with you so that you can share the story afterwards. And it'll give you some memories just like mine.
What is the most fun thing you've done in your life?
That's hard to say, except if it involves music, communication, and movement. Dancing, drumming and dancing for dancers in Africa and in the United States.
What would you say makes for a good life?
People, family, health,
Yeah.
and being able to move around and stay sane.
What are you most grateful for?
My family, what I got from them in gifts and physical and everything else. They made a good life for me when I was growing up. And it's got to sustain me now when I'm in incarceration.
Yes. Family is very important.
Can I just follow up with a quick question?
Mhm.
Sarah, did you grow up in Maine or did you grow up somewhere outside of Maine?
I like to say I was conceived in Maine, but I was born in the Bronx and I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Came here every summer of my life.
Oh, that's neat. That's interesting.
That's really cool. Are there things you would change about your life?
Things I would change. That's hard to say. I tried to make the best of what I got because it was all educational for me. I had a daughter who was hard of hearing, and I had to learn how to communicate in many other ways. So, and I had to have my older children learn how to communicate that way too. So I would say my daughter being hard of hearing was an important part of my life. And it sort of set the tone, so
Yeah.
to speak.
What inventions or other like technological developments have you seen during your life?
Whew. Well, my father helped develop radar, video and communication on TV. I flew a couple times in jet planes, so that was not too important. Well, if I had more time to look at this question, I might be able to come up with those. I'm glad to see there is a vaccine for measles because that's what she had when I had when I was carrying her. She was born with the hearing loss. But now they have a shot for that, rubella.
Mm-hmm. Were there things going on in the world when you were growing up that affected how you grew up?
This is one of them. I remember also seeing newsreels of the freeing up the concentration camps in Europe. And that was grueling and stuck with me for a long time. Very upsetting.
Yeah. What advice would you give a young person just starting out in life? Like,
oh gosh. Well, I have a thing I call the 4 agreements. And one of them is don't make assumptions, speak the truth, and a couple other things. And I should get it out for you for let me get to it for a minute. I'll excuse myself from the screen for just a second. Here are the 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others do is a projection of their own reality. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. And then there's always do your best. Those are the things I try to keep in front when I make friends or lose them.
do you have a special memory of a family member or another person in your life that you hold like really close to you?
Well, as 2, I would say so. One is my hard of hearing daughter, who was very instrumental with us. She doesn't realize this quite yet, but she might in the future. And another one is my sister, who I can talk with about anything. And when we reach some place where we don't agree, we say bucket, and we change the subject.
Are there bucket list items that you've either done or would still like to do?
Things I would still like to do. Well, I'd like to go down and see Jordan Benison, the African, a member of an African drumming group that I worked with. And he's got a restaurant in Camden, and I'd like to go down and see him. And I always like to go out for a ride with my younger son, who is I call him my heart child. My second boy is my brain child, and my daughter is my money child. They're all contributing and helpful to me in that way.
What are you most grateful for? Well, my 3 daughters, because they've gone into careers, jobs that have helped the world.
What would you say makes for a good life?
I'd say what makes for a good life is family and very good friends that stick by you.
What's the most fun thing you have done in your life?
I'd say number 1, gardening, reading, cooking, and traveling, and most of all, teaching.
Yeah, those are nice. Are there things you would change about your life?
I think probably to slow down and reflect in the moment more. Slow down, not caring so much what other people think of me.
Are there bucket list items that you have either done or would still like to do in life?
Well, one dream I have is that we have a family vacation, which your family and Karina, the big Karina, Auntie Karina, and all our families, and Leanna, Auntie Leanna, that we all go on a vacation. All of our families go on a vacation somewhere together. The extended family go on a vacation together.
Were there things going on in the world when you were growing up that affected how you grew up?
Yeah, I think I was very lucky that everyone on our street was a family member. And I grew up in a little town, so I knew everybody in the little town. So I felt very cared for. And we didn't watch a lot of television, so I wasn't worried about the world and a lot of problems. So I guess it was kind of really nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Do you have words of advice for the next generation regarding the things going on in the world now?
Yeah, my advice would be, when you choose what you want to do when you grow up, choose something that you really, really love and that will help the world. And I don't think you can go wrong if you do that.
What's one thing in your life that you really love?
My family, my grandchildren. I really love my grandchildren. I'm proud of them. I think of them every day. You're one of them. I love you.
What would you say makes up a good life?
I would say doing something you like, having a good education, and making the most of your abilities, and knowing what your limits are.
Yeah, those are all good things. From that, or perhaps another insight you have, what advice would you give to a young person just starting out in life?
If you have something that you are very good at, and pursue it and develop it, you will find it is a fun and rewarding life.
Yeah.
So do what you really want to do, and have fun.
Yeah. What are you most grateful for?
Well, I am grateful for the opportunity to, at this time in history, to participate in I was an automatic test equipment business, and I witnessed the growth of computers. Matter of fact, it was the leading edge technology, and I saw firsthand modest beginnings to today's supercomputers, and it's a shame because it's a two-edged sword, in that we are
Mhm.
that there are scammers and criminals that take advantage of the technology, and that's about it.
Yeah. Do you have a special memory of a family member or someone you hold dear in your life that, yeah, they hold dear?
Yes, my grandfather's on my father's side. His name was Sam, or Samuel, and I didn't see him often, but when I was with him, he gave me much attention, and that I am very grateful for.
Are there things you would change about your life?
No, I've had a good life and been very fortunate to live the life I have. My wife and children have been has exceeded my expectations. I was fortunate to live in Massachusetts, which I thank Nancy for that, because it gave me more opportunities to develop my skills, and we relocated there from please be quiet. Relocated there, and now we're probably 3 miles from Leanna, which is very short distance, in Virginia.
Nice.
So I would say my life has been very fortunate, and I am lucky to have Nancy, my wife, and the children we have.
Yeah, that's nice. Were there things in the world when you were growing up that affected how you grew up?
When I was growing up, we moved to Southern California at the age of, I was 7. And I can recall we visited Griffith Observatory often, and I became aware of the universe, Also, I had a teacher that introduced me to amateur radio. And my dad said, if I can get all A's, then he would buy me a radio transmitter and the whole thing, and for that, I did so, and he did. So that
That's
was
a nice story.
yes. So that was great because I learned so much. On the there was a program on amateur radio there if you could work all states, and I had to I started to learn about where each place is, and
Yeah.
so that was very good.
What was the toughest state to get?
Alaska, and that's because I had to wait the right time for the ionosphere to be just right to get it, and that was incredible, and when I did get it, I was thrilled.
Yeah. Do you have words of advice for the next generation regarding the things going on in the world right now?
Well, yes. Never trust the internet for news. Get many sources, including newspapers, major networks on TV, and books.
Did you have any hobbies when you were little?
Yes. Amateur radio. I also, I did running too. And I wasn't fast, but I was persistent, and
No, just say it regular. What kind of running was it?
basically cross country.
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Let's see. This might be making it too long. She's getting tired.
Are there any memories that make you laugh?
Oh,
Tiny fell off the roof.
oh yeah. There was a situation where I was climbing on the roof of my house, and mother was was looking out the window at the
Doing
time,
dishes.
and and she saw me fall, but I was
Stubborn.
I was stubborn, and I got up
Ran off.
and brushed myself off, and
What were you doing on the roof?
I was fixing an antenna. And it
Right.
was yes, a transmitting antenna
Or is
for the amateur radio station, which I had, and so that was a humorous situation.
he wasn't hurt?
Well, not much. I wouldn't admit to it anyway.
So I'm going to start with a question. What would you say makes for a good life?
Oh, I guess kind of being kind and be useful. And that's a quote from Mr. Obama, not me, but I think it's a good quote. And follow your bliss. And that's Joseph Campbell. I mean, there are so many facets to a good life, and it's defined by the person as they look back on it. Mine, what I just said, following my bliss and being useful and kind is I would put kind at the top.
But I agree that is a great answer. And can you share a little bit more from your perspective of like what your bliss has been or how you found ways to be useful to others?
Well, I think probably listening to others has been, in fact, professionally, that's what I did a lot of, was listening. And it's important. I guess the other part is when you're having those creative moments, which are very few, and when you're in that moment and doing something creative that's new and exciting, that's the bliss that happens.
Do you write poetry as well, or did you ever write poetry?
I do, occasionally. When you fall in love, you always write poetry. So it's good.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit, are there items on your bucket list that you have either done in your life or that you would still like to do?
Well, I'm one of those people who kind of react to a bucket list. I mean, it's kind of hubris, or I just it bothers me a little bit to do that. But there are things if I listed the things I've done that made me happy and all that sort of thing, yes, there's always been things like that. Are there things that I would like to do, quote, as a bucket list? Well, yeah, there are two things, and this will tell you how serious I am if I'm not serious about a bucket list, is if I could, I would love to be able to play all the instruments in the world and speak all the languages, and then I would be complete.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone answer that way, but that's a great answer. I agree, especially on the languages. I think I might be hopeless on the musical instrument part, but that would be very cool.
I would think that you would never be lonely. Play even if you could play all the instruments, forget that's a language in itself. Really.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any musical instruments that you have learned to play in your lifetime?
I played the violin and the bass violin when I was very young, and enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around musicians. Always have, always will, and loved. I was a 60s and 70s music freak. I loved the music of the 60s and 70s, so it was good.
What inventions or other social or technical developments have you seen come into being during your lifetime?
Oh, wow. Well, I would say inoculations, all the varieties, Salk vaccine, and the Salk vaccine stands out amongst them because when I was very young, that was a real threat to people. And Johannes Salk was a wonderful man. He never patented that vaccine, and it was available free. You know, for God, he could have made billions with that, but he didn't. And so that's one that stands out. But there are many, and the medical profession and what they've done, the treatment, how that's progressed, that has been, and of course what's sitting in front of us, the technology. I was one of the first 30,000 people to buy a Macintosh in 1984, and I had a Timex Sinclair before that, which was a most primitive machine. And what has happened in technology is just, well, I love it. I love technology, and I have a watch, I have an iPad, I have an iPhone, I have Apple TV, and the whole works. But I love it, and it's like anything else. There's a lot you can abuse it, and some people do, and it can become addictive and be abused. So that's a challenge in the future, because humans were pretty susceptible to addictions and abuses. So we have to come up with solutions. We'll see.
Are there, and this is a tough question, but in that realm of technology, do you have things that are your favorite, or things that you've really felt have benefited you or benefited others?
Oh, well, yes. Well, I'm an Apple person, so when I bought the Macintosh, and I have 4 children, and all of them, that was probably the best thing I ever bought in my life for them, because they all got on it very young, and all are technology wise. So yeah, I would say that is probably, in the technology area, that would be the thing that did.
Yeah, it definitely keeps people informed and connected. That's a great answer. Let me see here. Another question is, what's the most fun thing you've ever done in your life?
Oh, I thought about that when you sent me the list of questions, and I was thinking, when I've done something and I'm involved in something and doing it, and if it's new and exciting and that sort of thing, that's an awful lot of fun. But I was thinking of more of the physical fun thing, and I guess in my life I played a lot of tennis, and I would say it's hard for me to consider it as fun, but it was fun doing it. I mean, it was competitive, of course, and but the fun was in the competition, and so that was very, very much a lot of fun. And I did, trying to think of some things. With my children, there were times when you did things with them, and that was all new to them for the first time, and that was fun. I mean, of course, you do that. And yeah. I guess it's hard going back thinking of all the times that I can the great laughter and what brought that on. Silly things many times. And I think I have a sense of humor, but I love humor. And I love to laugh at things and myself. I love to be caught out with humor. And laughter is just wonderful. I mean, that's good.
Yeah,
Even-
they say it's the best medicine, right?
Even if it's at my expense, it's wonderful sometimes. But yeah, it's fun.
Do you have a favorite joke?
Oh, not really. I'd love a good. I watched Seinfeld getting coffee in cars with comedians, which is one of them I love, and that is so well, given all the news in the world today, that is so silly and so good that it just for 20 minutes you're gone in laughter, and lots of jokes there. And the people he has on are just great. They're comedians, and they are very helpful, very relaxing. It's called The Clear Days. And it starts off when the dogs of indecision cross and cross again your field of vision. A cloud, a buzzing fly distracts the lover's eye. Until the heart has found its native piece of ground, the eye remains unlit, the day withholds its light. The ground's the body's bride that will not be denied. When the mind's an empty room, the clear days come.